talk about how you can even have a storytelling festival. So definitely important. And I'm already realizing that I'm going to echo around just because of restreaming. So I'm going to take care of some of that as well. There we go. I'm learning every single moment. In fact, the very first time I streamed was last week on April 20th. And I didn't know that there was an overlay of music of the Story Crossroads anthem. So that was pretty exciting. And now I realize if I put up a few screens up, and if I don't have things muted on that end, suddenly it's going to echo over here. So that's okay. I've learned some things. So welcome, say hello in the chat. This is Story Crossroads, and we are excited about our spectacular that is coming up. Now, it wasn't going to be a spectacular. It was actually going to be a live storytelling festival. But obviously, with situations, we had to adapt. We could have simply postponed our storytelling festival to 2021, which we did with our lineup, but we decided it was really important to still have something on May 13th, and it really has turned out spectacular, and thus our name of Story Crossroads Spectacular. And there were a lot of hard decisions that had to be made. There was the gathering of the board, which even before all of this, we always would do it through Zoom. And because we did it that way, it's not like we were used to going into our homes and doing it live. So that was helpful, and we had to discuss what to do. There was a few heads-up emails that we sent out to the storytellers themselves, so that they already, of course, knew that there was a situation. I'm sure they were anxiously awaiting that email from Story Crossroads of what was going to happen. And we had to decide what would be comfortable, what is even possible. At the time of making some of the decisions, we didn't know whether mass gatherings were even going to be possible. We didn't know about schools and what the schools might decide at the time. And so we were having a long list of brainstorming of what that would mean. And some of that brainstorming was, can we at least send a storyteller in the school? If the schools are still open, could we still send one storyteller? Because if they're gathering there anyway, what's one more storyteller? But then, of course, the schools did close, and we had to shake around some more ideas. We learned about storytellers who would visit virtually in the classroom. And I reached out to a few of them just to get some ideas, just so that we could brainstorm. And then we thought, well, what we could do is have them stream from their own homes. Now, most of our storytellers that we feature with Story Crossroads are from Utah. And that means that they're relatively close. So even if we needed them to come to, let's say, my home, but we very much limit the people to a couple of people for cameras and myself and the performer, and I send my family to the basement, we might still be okay. So there was all of that talk as well. We wished that we could actually feature all of our storytellers this year with this virtual event. But when you don't have 3 pavilions running at the same time, then you already have less time to do that. Now, we've noticed that some storytelling festivals decided to spread it out, and that way they could take over a month. The St. Louis Storytelling Festival was one that decided to spread it out, and I've been able to jump on a few times. Not all the time, I wish I could every single moment, but it was helpful to at least to see what they're doing, and I did get to listen to some amazing talents where deep down I'm thinking, maybe we need to mention Story Crossroads to these people. And Jim, it's nice that you're with us today. I'm glad that you're hearing me all right. Now, this week, I'm just having the normal microphone from the laptop itself. But next Monday, when it gets streamed, it will be a little bit different because I will actually have all of the equipment. Bit by bit, we're getting those pieces in. We will have that in for our big test run on May 1st before our May 13th spectacular. So I should sound even better, Jim, when it comes to next week. But there shouldn't be any music powerfully playing in the background. Is that right, Jim? I'm counting on you to... There's no music, right? Someday maybe I'll be able to figure out how to overlay music so it's not so loud and still be talking. That would be nice, because I really do love our Story Crossroads anthem. Now, going back to some of those hard decisions, we had to consider what platforms to even consider. There were a lot of storytellers that were doing things on Facebook, and we loved what we saw there. You know, Bill Harley has done regular things on Facebook and sounding awesome and amazing. Laura Packer has done a lot of amazing ones, and Priscilla Howe has done a lot of amazing ones. So we knew that Facebook was working really good for people, as well as Zoom. Oh, and it's nice to see that David is also on, which is nice. And when you have an account, it's really helpful because then you can chat instead of just watching this. So I appreciate that as well. So if this sounds good now, think how awesome it's going to sound next week. Yeah, all these decisions. And actually, seeing that David is here, he will be one of the ones that we are featuring, as well as a few others. He and his wife do amazing Celtic stories and songs. And if you love the sound now, David, I can't wait till next week. And with the test run that's going to come on Friday. So that'll be even better. In some of the decisions we had to make, it was, do we still keep Spanish? From our very first year, we would offer Spanish interpretation, at least with the evening. And we were excited this year we were going to have a multilingual pavilion and actually have the teller speak in English for a few lines and then Spanish for a few lines, back and forth, back and forth. This was the year we were going to test that out. So we're going to pause on that, and that will have to be 2021. But I am hoping at the end of this that if we have some leftover funds, we can still approach our wonderful friends who can interpret with Spanish. And yes, we could do Spanish closed captioning, but I think it'll be even better if we have what's recorded, do a split screen, and actually see the faces of our interpreters. So I'm hoping that's what it can do. Yes, and you did hear your name, David. You'll be hearing your name a lot, especially if you come on these, because you're one of the performers, so definitely. Well, when it comes to the American Sign Language, that was something that, even though streaming would be new to us, we thought, well, why not add American Sign Language? That has also been with us since the very beginning. And we knew with some help from our videographers who know this better than we do, that we could figure out how we could somehow have another feed, another camera within another camera. And I knew it was possible because the National Storytelling Festival has done that. And I think I've seen it a few other places. But because I've seen it done, I knew we could do it too. So I'm really excited that we'll still have American Sign Language this year. And we've had to brainstorm, since we're not using all of our storytellers, what does that mean? Here's what I'm hoping. I'm really hoping that we can actually involve each of the people from the lineup somehow before we get to next year. Because eventually we're going to be beyond streaming. We'll still do streaming, but beyond that, we want to get back to live events. We won't always be at Code Red. Right now in Utah, we're Code Red, but we won't always be. Eventually, we will be Code Orange. Then what? We could actually be gathered together somehow. So before I go into Spectacular, I want to tell you what we can do, I think, eventually by August. This is what I'm hoping. That our monthly house concert series would usually rotate to different people's homes. I'm hoping it's going to be at my home, and that the backyard is big enough so that we can still have the 6 feet distance for people coming in. There's a certain place to go in with my backyard that we can have wooden stakes every 6 feet, and that way we can have no bottlenecking of people of coming in. We'd have to require RSVPs. Because Code Orange means we couldn't gather more than 20 people, it means we'd have to have no more than 18 RSVP'd, and then one for me and one for the performer, and that gets us our 20. And we can space it out, require masks. If people don't have masks, we can have some, and that would just, they would add to their donation to the event because they need a mask. And it's also great to see that we have JAHM. I'm not sure how you want me to nickname you. Should I just like J, possibly? But it's great to see you here too. So brainstorming how we can still be live with storytelling again, but we could still be streaming at the same time and continue that tradition. I think that would be really fun. Now, what had to shift a little bit, changing a live storytelling festival to a virtual one? Well, we had to see what that meant with our budget. So part of it, oh good, Jay's going to work perfect. That's easy for me. So we usually have, let's see, I had it right here, of course. Here it is. We usually have a very nice program. And it's usually like 20 pages, glossy. Isn't it beautiful? You can tell it has a shine to it, right? And Andrea Ayers every year puts hours and hours and hours and hours to put this beautiful program together. Well, that's not exactly something that makes sense for a virtual festival. So we're just going to be doing a couple page version of a program, and that way we have that. But because we're not doing this kind, that saved us at least $700, which is helpful when you think about some of the equipment and things you may need to put on a virtual event. It's amazing how many pieces and things you can do. Yes, there's a laptop, but if you really want it festival level, which we're not at festival level today, we'll get there. By the next time, it'll be more festival level with sound and everything else. It'll be exciting. So that was something where our budget with the festival had to shift a little bit. Normally, we would also put a little bit of money, of course, towards posters and flyers. Well, when people are in their homes, it doesn't make as much sense to have hard copy posters and flyers. Things are very much digital. Again, that saves money, and that saves at least a few $100s right there. And then the venues. Now, the venues were very kind to not charge us because we technically weren't really canceling, we were rescheduling. And everyone's just been very merciful. And so we saved probably at least $1,300 this year that would have gone towards venues. So again, that was money we could shift over and place towards the equipment that we needed. And part of what we decided to spend some of it on, not just equipment, was on Zoom training. Because some of what we're doing is not just multi-streaming through something like this, it would also be through Zoom, especially if it's a workshop and we're charging something. It's more exclusive versus something where, hey, this is everybody come and take a look. So it's nice. It's nice to be able to see what's possible. Now, some of the equipment that, in case you're curious about what we've had to get and what I've had to suddenly learn about. I mean, before all this, I really didn't know like any of this. And I still don't know a ton of this. I'm just trusting a lot of people right now. And we got a few things from B&H Photo. I don't know if anyone out there has ever gotten anything from B&H Photo. Anyone? Jay, by chance you might have gotten something from B&H Photo? I don't know what types of equipment you tend to use. And Jim, I know that you're pretty new on here, so I know you don't have some of that equipment yet, though obviously you have the computer to jump on. And David, I'm not so sure about you either, about your equipment. I know you definitely have sound equipment because as a performer, you definitely have sound. Well, what we had to do was get a USB microphone with studio headphone set. And it has a vocal condenser in it. There's a podcast mic. It works for Windows, it works for live streaming, it works for voiceovers, and we had to shop around and figure out what worked best. And that I will be getting in a few days. Hooray, I can't wait. That will be exciting. We also ended up having to get a splitter. Funny enough, on the box itself, it doesn't say splitter. It doesn't say splitter, but funny enough, that is what it's kind of known for, so that we can actually have more than one video feed. Right now we just have one video feed. But I'm a believer in more than one angle. And this is fine for the behind the scenes. It's not good enough for a festival. We need at least 2 angles, maybe even 3. So that's why we had to get that special thing. We also had to get trio box lights. Now right now I'm just using basic office lamp lights that I can like that. That's all I'm doing. But by next time there will be the box lights, and they're bi-color. Now, I didn't know any of this. Again, this is very much, I'm learning so much, so I'm telling you what I've had to then learn and get used to. The reason why bi-color box lights are nice is because you don't just have to be with one color. Obviously, the name bi-color. You can play around with it a little bit, get just the right lighting. And we want our performers to look the best. I mean, they are already awesome, but now we want them to look their best for everybody. And you want a trio because usually one light's not going to do it. You have to kind of get it from here and possibly there. So this will help with that. And when we do the test run, since it's going to be in my home and we have a spacious enough place so that we can have the 6 feet distance, still be safe, people in masks, you know, all the special things we need to do, then we're going to have masking tape, because I don't have gaffer tape and I don't suddenly want to get gaffer tape. I'm just going to have masking tape, mark it, and that way the lights are ready and in their place, so they just have to stay there till March 13th. I'll still be cleaning over them, but they're just going to be there, so it'll just quicken all the setup when it comes to May 13th. Yeah. And yes, Jim, I think things will look great. It is exciting. I'm actually excited about May 1st because that will give us our biggest hint of how this is going to be. And yes, Jay, it'll be awesome. Definitely awesome. And we could have done it simpler. We could have simply done even just this screen. But it's Story Crossroads. It's a Salt Lake County level event. You know, we represent Utah. We represent possibly the United States. Who knows? We could be representing the world of storytelling. No pressure, so we might as well make it look good. We also had to get, and I'm going to read this because I'm still figuring out what exactly this is. I know it's important because the videographer said so. Angel Bird USB Type C female to USB Type A male adapter. I didn't even know until I ordered it that there was male and female when it comes to USBs. So nice to know. I also learned that there's 2.0 versus 3.0 USBs. And yeah, all these things. Amazing. But we needed it. So we got it. And the other thing we ended up getting is Blackmagic Design Intensity Shuttle for USB 3.0. So that is basically a camera capture, if I got the phrase right. Some of you may know this better than me. But the important thing is, my videographer said this is what I need, so I got it, and he'll figure it out May 1st. So it's all good. But I have to say, I'm really grateful for the things I don't have to buy in order to prepare for a virtual festival. So I actually, I made a sign. I'm so prepared. I could have typed it, but I thought this is special. So these are free, and it has helped a ton. So right now, with streaming, I'm using the OBS. That's just the last on the list right there. But the Any Video Converter is free. Audacity, free. And Canva, free. And the middle two I recently learned about. The Any Video Converter is helpful when I'm making promo videos, or maybe I need to cut things, or maybe I need to add video. The Audacity is where I can work with my music if I have it in the background, or if I have someone speaking, and I can also merge them on top of each other. So yay, it is so awesome using it. And I didn't even do a tutorial because some of the buttons look familiar. I could play around without watching a tutorial, if that tells you something, but I will have to officially do that. I did learn enough to put music behind audio to then put it on the video, that I then created some of the fancy stuff in Canva. Now Canva, you can actually make nice videos, but you can also create flyers. You can make nice little things that have movement to them, kind of like GIFs a little bit, where there's movements and it catches your eye, and you can use it on social media. So really, really love all of that. And yes, I did love, Jay, that there's saved funds to other items of what we needed to. So we discovered, okay, if you don't have an actual physical festival, here's some money, and here's where it needs to go. And oh, I am so grateful to the funders. They have been so amazing. I've told them ever since we made the decision to even do virtual, say, hey, just so you know, there's this. But then there was also the continuing conversation, and it keeps getting better every time I keep talking to the funders. They keep tweaking the requirements. It used to be, oh, this grant has to be for this specific thing. And one by one, the funders are opening up and saying, you know what, take this money, use it for basically anything you need it to be used for. It's basically general operating grants, which is so much easier to work with. Now, we still are going to use a bunch of that for the actual performers. I'm a big believer. If you have a festival and it's a performing arts festival, you better have at least half of that money to the performers. I'm actually surprised that there are performing arts events and either there's no money for the performers or hardly any. That is ridiculous. So that's how I feel. So I am very excited that I feel like what we will end up spending will be what we typically do, where at least half is going to performers. Now, are we featuring all 15 during Spectacular? No. Are we featuring still some spectacular people? Yes. Are there still spectacular people we got to figure out and see if somehow we can work some things out for them? Yes. And that's why the house concerts that we hopefully will kick off in August will be a mixture of live, very small, mixed with virtual. And I think the first storytellers I will approach will be the ones that would have been in this year's lineup. The only thing is, they have their choice. They may not be comfortable, even if we take all these wonderful health precautions, even if we're following what the state has says or the nation, what's being said, they may still say, you know what, let's wait a year, and that'll be fine. They know that I'm really wanting them to perform. They did make it through the selection process. It's not like I wonder, are they going to be good? I already know that they're great. So I need to figure out and brainstorm, not just myself, the whole board, maybe yourselves, maybe you have ideas of how we can somehow still use our performers throughout this year of 2020 and not have to always push everything to 2021. I don't think we have to, in this world today, push everything to 2021. Do I miss live? I do. But it is. So those are some of the exciting things. I also want to go into some of the to-dos, because when you're getting a countdown mode, guess what? We are almost to the 2-week countdown. Oh gosh. I am super excited. I'm nervous, but I am super excited. I'm nervous only because, not for the performers, because I know they're awesome. That is what gives me the confidence. I'm nervous of, did I truly learn all that I needed to? Did I connect and listen to all the people that I have been reaching out to? because this is not a Rachel show. No way. In fact, Jim is on here, and he has done a ton for me. And there's so many people who have just been just doing all kinds of things to make this happen. It's amazing. It's amazing. It's not just pressing a button, boom, you have a virtual festival. Oh, there's still so much behind the scenes. So what had to happen? There were tons of emails sent out to teachers about virtual field trips. I was able to have some of those teachers fill out, are you virtually attending? And a couple of them had questions. I was able to answer them, saying, yes, we have family-friendly material, or yes, I'm going to remind you as it gets closer, and all you have to do is share this one link to your students. So, you know, nice and easy questions. They haven't done like, why are we here questions, really deep ones, but they might. If they do, I will still answer to the best of my ability. But if it's spectacular related, I definitely will have the answers for them. And when it comes to online calendars, bit by bit, we've been putting it out there, but you have to balance and you have to go, well, this online calendar is probably my most important one versus this other one, but I'll get to it if I happen to have this extra 5 minutes or so. Here's the good news. Once you have one listed for an online calendar, you're able to kind of pull from it, and it makes it easier for any other online calendar. So the first one's the hardest, but good news, it gets easier. Oh, thank goodness, right? Then I put out a bunch of press releases. And last week I talked about press releases a little bit, and that I was going to go off of the list through Utah Cultural Alliance, which we are we have membership with. And that helped a ton. But when I looked at the list, not all of them really would fit with us. So any press releases I send out, I don't do a blanket one. I don't believe in that either. I'm doing them individually. I'm saying their name if I have a name and trying to grab their attention. But did you know, never ever ever send a press release on Monday or Friday. So since today's Monday, did I do any press releases today? No. But it's better to do a press release than not at all. So if you forget and your only day to really put it out is Monday or Friday, still do it. Still do it. Anyone out here has done a press release before? Jay, have you ever done a press release? Oh, and I see Jim and Jim twice. I just realized there's 2 Jims that are out here. Hello to both Jims. Oh, well, press releases, don't do Mondays, don't do Fridays. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are best. And if you can, aim it before lunchtime. And if you can more than that, try to aim more towards 9 a.m.-ish. Ish is the big keyword. But so I did do that on Thursday in between that lovely time. And then because tomorrow's Tuesday, I'm going to be putting another round of press releases out. But you usually put out your TV ones first. They need more time than some of the other ones. So that was happening. Actually, I'm going to be interviewed on a podcast, and it's going to be recorded tomorrow, but it won't air until maybe a few days before the Spectacular. So already, that was amazing, and we'll see how I do. Wish me luck, right? That will be fun. I told them that I prefer to be surprised with questions and not have, you must ask me these questions, because I like it more exciting. Though I can probably guess what questions will probably be asked, but still, yeah, keep me guessing. In fact, right now in chat, you could just ask a random question, and that will be fun for me. Who knows? Well, what else I've been up to is reviewing with the promos. I'm super excited right before this stream, so I haven't even looked at it yet, so it's kind of killing me a little bit. But we have our American Sign Language promo. I'm excited. We've always wanted that. We've always offered American Sign Language, but the whole video is in American Sign Language with closed captioning, so that way it's good for those who are from the hearing or deaf worlds. It will be fine for everybody. And it features Dale Boehm, and he's amazing. He's actually an official ASL interpreter with the Timpanogos Storytelling Festival, but he's also on our Story Crossroads board, and he's a great official one for us there. So I can't wait to show off Dale with this wonderful American Sign Language one. So if you happen to know anyone who needs American Sign Language or has learned American Sign Language, be on the lookout. We'll be sharing that, and I would love it if you could share it. And also, we've been working on the arts education handouts, because that way we can connect it to the performances. We won't require teachers to use the arts education handouts. If they want to simply focus on a virtual field trip, please, so be it. But we actually got quotes from the whole Gasher family on Tall Tales, even from the baby. Now the baby's not performing, in case you're wondering, but you're going to want to look at that handout just to see what the baby said in the Gashler family. So it's great. And we also got a lot of amazing resources from Dave and Carol Sharp with Celtic lore, and that's going to be amazing. So was hoping it was going to be done already, but we want it to look its best. Sometimes you have to pause a few days just so it can look its best. I'm sure you all can agree that sometimes, actually pretty much every time, almost every time, it takes longer than what you're thinking, right? Am I right? I need to hear something here just to make sure. I'm thinking this is right. It always takes longer than you think. Hey, oh good, I got an amen. Thank you, Jim. That's what I like to hear, for sure. And in the process of all this, and all the big checklists of things to do, something that's on my back of my mind, if I want a cool down, sometimes my cool downs include researching things, and maybe I should be better about stopping that too, so it's truly a cool down break. But one of the things I came upon was a video postcard. Have you guys ever heard of a video postcard? A video postcard. That was new to me, but it makes sense. I study communications marketing, so anything with marketing fascinates me. So a video postcard, it says that video postcard campaigns from Fortune 500 companies to small businesses and nonprofits, they generate audience engagement at a rate up to 7 times higher than an email. Well, that already grabs my attention. I'm going to look into it. So that could be your fun word of the day, or phrase, video postcard. Well, that, all this being said, oh yes, what video editor do you use? Well, we have a videographer, so for certain things, we have Sterling Elliott take care of things. He's been with us from the very first year with Story Crossroads. The lovely thing is that we have videotaped every single year. Now, we haven't released things because anytime you release video, you want a second permission from the performers. So we know that's a process, and we haven't done that. And we also plan that someday there will be a Story Crossroads documentary. And it will be something like Story Crossroads, the early years. I don't know. We can play around with that. But because of that, Sterling usually takes care of things. I'm not sure what he uses. For me, when I'm putting my little self-taught promo videos together, which I've done a couple now, it's been through Canva, which is from that sign again. Ta-da! So this is what I've been using, is mainly the look of it is Canva. But if I have to cut it or add audio, at that point I need to do this. Now, even before doing a virtual festival, the Any Video Converter, I was using every year, once a year really, now a lot more often, because of grants. Some of the grants are specific to performing artists, and they want to have a snippet. They don't want a 5-minute or a 10-minute or a 15-minute or definitely not an hour of the artist's work. They only want 1 minute. So you have to take a video and cut it to 1 minute. So that was my introduction to that. And then I realized it could help me with more things, especially when I got introduced to Canva. So that's what I use. You, Jim, would know a lot more. What have you used then? Because you've definitely put a lot of videos together. You put a lot of tutorials together, and that's a whole other world, is catching your screen and then having it turn into something. Ah, Camtasia. Yes, I've heard of Camtasia. And WeVideo. Okay, great. Yes, actually Sterling, our videographer, did mention Camtasia, and he also mentioned Manycam, but I know they're two different things. So Manycam is, you can make it lovely and nice for streaming. And instead of Manycam right now, we're using OBS. That's what's streaming this out, is OBS. Anyone? This is a good quiz. Anyone know what OBS stands for? Do you happen to know what OBS stands for? It's okay, you can cheat. If you Google it and then put it in the chat, it's okay. Old Bologna Sandwich? I'm sure that's what it is. I think that was the original name, Jim. Definitely. Any other guesses? I like that guess, though. That's way better than the actual name. I'm going to pause. Get a pause. Okay, well, at least I get a nice smile. You know, because I think you agree that that's how the name it should be, right? It should be Old Bologna Sandwich. And I used to eat Old Bologna sandwiches. I don't make my kids eat those, though. Okay, I'm going to count down 3, 2, 1. OBS stands for Open Broadcaster Software. So that's what it is. Open Broadcaster Software. But Manycam is only, for what we probably could use it for, is only $29 a year. And it can still handle 4 video feeds. So if I have, let's say, 3 cameras in my laptop, boom, that's my 4. And it's tempting. I might. We'll see. But I've been hanging out with OBS the last few weeks, so sometimes you just have to go with what you're familiar with. I put a thing out to Sterling saying, what's your thoughts? OBS or Manycam? But he hasn't really said one way or the other. I think part of it is we're going to see how May 1st turns out. Then we'll know for sure. Now, those of you out there, do you have any questions about the process? If you're here from the very beginning, you knew that we went into some of the hard decisions, how we shifted some of the budget, how that way it opened up to get some of the equipment, and we talked about some of the equipment that we ended up having to get, that we got piece by piece, and I'm not able to really show it off right now, but by next week, bit by bit, you'll see a difference, hear a difference. This is your chance if you have a question. And Twitch, the reason why we're even here on Twitch, as a reminder, is that we know that certain schools for virtual field trips, they need an option that works for them, that's allowed with their school district, and this is what's allowed, at least in this area. And every school district is different on those policies. So we have had to learn, we've had to grow because of that. I've been urging a lot of storytellers, saying, please, please look into Twitch. I think there's some great things that are happening out here. And I've definitely heard a lot of amazing performing artists, a lot of great musicians. Dun, 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 dun. Any questions? Anyone? Anyone? Well, I may then switch to a story at this point, because I always like to end with a story. And this one might just take up some of that time, and maybe I can talk about why I love this particular story. But I better have some water first. So this is a Celtic story, And actually, it's a type of story that Dave and Carol Sharp would tell, but I haven't heard them tell this particular one. So David, if you're out there by chance, I'd love to hear from you on this as well. There once was a noble chieftain, and he led his people with great justice, with peace in the land. But there was something that he and his wife were missing. They were missing a child. They were missing an heir. No one knew who would be the next chieftain. And on one of those days, he jumped on his horse and he was riding off thinking about what was going to happen, when he heard something in the bushes. Now he knew this land. He knew all of the creatures, but it didn't sound like any of the creatures. And he knew every single person in his village, and it did not sound like any of their voices. And it just got him so much curiosity that he slid off his horse and he walked over to the bush and he parted the branches, and there was a little boy, a scrawny boy. Some of his ribs were even showing through. And from what he could tell, this boy was probably about 5 years old. And so this chieftain, his name being Bros, looked at this boy and said, you need some food. You need something. But first, what is your name? And the boy just looked at the chieftain and said, I don't know. Well then, where is your father? Where's your father? I don't know. Your mother. Surely you know where your mother is. I don't know. Then where are you from? Can you tell me anything? I don't know. Are the only words that you know, I don't know. But by this time, the boy smiled and said, I don't know. Well, by this, I think I know what your name shall be. Your name shall be Non Dore. That means I don't know. So from now on, now you have a name. But as you know nothing of your background, of where you're from, with your parents, you must come home with me. And so that chieftain Bros lifted up that boy, placed him on that huge horse, and he walked beside that horse as he led that boy to his village. The wife saw this little boy, and she couldn't help but fall in love with him. And the two of them discussed it, and they knew that they should raise this boy. And so they did. 2 years went by, glorious years, so many wonderful memories. And Bros knew that this was to be his heir. But still, he was only now 7 years old. He hardly knew anything of the world. And so Bros and his wife decided it was time for him to learn. Bros called for the boy. Non Dore! Non Dore! You need to choose. You need to choose an education. Now I have a cousin, and he is a druid, and he could teach you many things of the world, including how to hold a sword and maybe even to swing it. What say you? And Non Dore thought, that sounds like the place I need to be. So Non Dore gathered his things and he headed out. Now with all of this learning, Bros and his wife knew that Non Dore would be gone for a long time. In fact, many years. But it was the thing to do. When that boy turned 17, to what was called the age of choice, he came back. And when Bros and his wife looked and they saw this tall young man, how handsome, and with muscles everywhere, they had to then laugh and realize that this was Non Dore. And Bros was so proud as he listened to his son say all the things that he had learned. And then he looked at that boy and said, I know what must be done. Tomorrow, before the council, I want to announce to everyone that you are my adopted son, that you are my heir elect. What say you? And Nondore, he was speechless for a while. But then finally, he said, yes, I would love that. I know that's a great honor, and that can only go to one. And so it was announced the next day. The whole village cheered. The whole council cheered. And they agreed that Nondore should be the heir. And to celebrate, Bros went out into the village, taking his son to see if he could get him a new sword and a new horse. Now Bros, being the noble chieftain that he was, knew the best blacksmith, and they headed right to that blacksmith. And Nondore looked at every single sword, but nothing called to that young man. In fact, he took so long looking at those swords that the blacksmith was quite irritated and kept glaring and looking at Bros to try to convince his son to choose something. But Nondore just walked away and headed deeper into the marketplace, even turning down alleyways where there was some seedier stalls. And Bros couldn't believe it when his son was going through rusted metal pieces. And then he watched as his son pulled out a sword that was covered in rust. It was not worthy of one soon-to-be chieftain. But Nondore looked at his father and says, please, father, this is the sword for me. I do not know why, but it is calling to me. And see here, there's even something inscribed on it. It says, I am invincible. Surely that is a good sign. And Bros saw that his son was beaming so much so that he could not resist, and he bought it. Of course, he asked about the price, and the merchant said, you are the chieftain. All I need from you is a handshake. But Bros was so impressed by this that he turned to that merchant and said, I will give you more than a handshake. You should at least have something. Have a silver coin. And so it was paid for. And Nondore carried that sword. But now it was time to get a horse. And Nondore looked at all the most fantastic beasts from across the 5 kingdoms, but not one of them called out to that young man. Until finally, Nondore went down a path and Bros followed him, and there was a mangy looking mare. And there was the ribs sticking out. In fact, it reminded Bros of back when he had found Nondore in the first place. But still, Nondore looked at his father and said, please, father, this is the horse that I want. And Bros tried to convince his son to go back and look at those fantastic beasts, but Nondore would not hear of it. And so Bros looked at the merchant and said, you're not by any chance the same merchant from before, and what is the price of this horse? From you the chieftain, just a handshake from you. But again, Bros was so impressed that he not only gave that handshake, but a silver coin as well. But as Nondore took that horse by the halter, the merchant whispered in Nondore's ear, you must know that there are knots in this halter. If you loosen a knot, You can go anywhere you wish to go. Now Nondore heard this, and he wanted to tell his father, but it felt like something he had to keep to himself. And so he did. But then it was time for Nondore to go on his quest. He didn't know what it would be. He had a good sleep, knowing he would go somewhere. But even before it was morning, something awoke him. And he got up, and he took a walk. And he saw something shining in the moonlight. And when he looked down, there was a crown, a golden crown. He was about to pick it up when he heard a voice behind him say, "I would not take it. Do not take it." He looked around, but he did not see a person. He reached down again for that golden crown, but he heard it. "Do not take it. Do not take it." But it was shining so brilliantly, so he picked it up and he studied it, and he saw that there were writings on it. And he heard the voice again, "Ah, you should not have picked it up." Nondore turned, and the only thing next to him was his mare, that horse. It was a talking horse. So he decided that he'd like to listen to the horse, but the crown was already in his hands, and as he was thinking about what this horse had just told him, there was a guard that said, "You there, you, what do you have there? You are to be taken to the king at once." And so Nondore was dragged off, carrying this golden crown. There he was tossed before the king, and the king said, "What is that you have there? What is that?" And as Nondore lifted up the crown, it shone so bright, bright as the sun. But when the king reached for it, it didn't shine anymore. When the king passed the crown to his guard, then the crown shone like the sun again. In fact, it shone like the sun for every single person but the king. And this made the king angry. "What is this? What is this crown? Why do you bring it here?" "But your majesty, you brought me here." Yes, I did bring you here, but you will tell me by tomorrow morning what this is about, or you will be killed." And so Nondore was taken to the dungeon, and he tried to think about what this was. But through the bars of the dungeon, he could hear his friend, that horse. I know who it belongs to. It is the crown of the princess of the golden ram. You can tell the king that." And so the next day, Nondore told the king that the crown belonged to the princess of the golden ram. "Well, surely a crown that is so beautiful, must have a beautiful princess. So you will find me this princess, and I will marry this princess. And if you fail, you will die. If you do not come back, I will send my armies after you." So there was Nondore, realizing that he should have listened to the first place when his horse first said to not touch that golden crown. But now he had to face the consequences. And he tossed about all night, wondering what would happen. The next day, he took his sword, and he took his horse. But his horse said, "I know where you need to go. You need to go along the seashore." And so Nondore was not going to argue with his talking horse. And as they went along the seashore, there was a fish, and it flopped out onto the path. And Nondore thought this was great, that he had a meal right there before him. He had been in the dungeon. It had been a while. But his horse said, No, toss the fish back into the sea." And Nondore hesitated for a little bit, but decided to trust the horse. And he picked up that fish and tossed it back into the sea. And as he did that, that fish spoke, "I am the king of the fishes, and I will repay you one day." And then splash, it was gone. Then Nondore continued along that seashore. But there was a large bird, and it was trapped. Something had gotten its wings. And the horse told Nondore, "It is time. You need to release that bird. Release it, please." And so Nondore got off the horse and he went over to that bird. It was a kestrel. And he loosened its wing and he rubbed it just a little bit, put it in its place. And he tossed up that huge bird. And the bird from up in the sky said, "Ah, I am the king of the birds, and someday I will repay you." Nondore continued on his journey. But then he saw this strange creature chained up to a tree. He thought it was a man. But as he got closer, he saw that this man was covered in scales, or was it snakeskin? He wasn't sure. And that his tongue that flickered out every so often was just like a serpent, and he had 2 horns on top. And that was when he realized he was looking at a demon that was chained up, and yet his horse said, "You need to free him. You need to free him." Now this Nondore did not want to do, but he knew that from the beginning he should have listened to his horse about the golden crown, but now he was in this, and he had helped the fish and he had helped the kestrel. He would then help this demon. And so he took his rusty sword and he raised it up high and he threw it down hard onto those chains. It broke through. And that creature, that man, that demon, "I am the king of the demons, and I will repay you." And with that, the demon was off. Well, so it was that Nondore had done all these things, but still didn't quite know where to find this princess, until finally the horse said, "I know where you need to go. You need to go to Van." And so Nondore took part of the halter. He loosened one of the knots. He whispered into that horse's ear, "Van." And when he did, he was where he needed to be. He was outside the castle of the princess of the golden ram. But he knew it wouldn't be as easy as that. There was a creature off in the distance whispering to him. And so he turned, and that creature told him something. "You cannot go in there. You cannot go in there unless you're invited by the princess herself. There will be 2 that will come to the gate, but you cannot go in. You must take your sword, and your sword is the only way to get through them. You must kill them, no matter how they look." And so Nondore thought about what he was just told, and he pounded on the castle gate. And there an old man came hobbling towards him. And Nondore thought surely this wasn't someone that he needed to run through. But he remembered the warning, and he decided to listen. And he took his sword and ran it through the old man. Then come running was a young man saying, "Ah, that was my father. Sorry he was late to... What have you done?" And before the young man could say anything else, Nondore had taken his sword. But this time when he pulled out his sword, the sword was no longer full of rust. And his horse said, "Ah, that's because those 2 were demons. And now you have cleansed this sword, this special sword. If we are invited by the princess, we shall be fine." Finally, a young lady came to the castle gate, and she looked at this young man before her. "Are you going to come in?" Nondore paused. This was not exactly an invitation, and his warning from before was that he needed to make sure he was invited. And so he just stood there until finally that young woman, that princess, said, "Yes, you may come in. I formally invite you into my home." And so there was Nondore. But the horse stayed outside, but just close enough to whisper to him, you must say to her that if we go out to the pasture, I will dance for her. She loves to collect beasts. Tell her that. She will only go from this castle, which is the safest place to be. Please tell her." And so Nondore told the princess, "Thank you for inviting me in your home, but I would like you to go out to a pasture. You see my horse here, a wonderful dancer, the best dancer in all of 5 kingdoms, only will do it for me. Please come this way." So the princess then went out of her castle with Nondore, and they went out to the pasture, and that horse danced such dances, such intricate movements, that princess started to clap and applaud and just cheer with delight, until finally Nondore went to that princess and said, "Surely you want to dance with this horse." And she jumped onto the horse. But as soon as she jumped onto the horse, he jumped on as well. He loosened one of the knots on the halter, and he said, "Léon." As soon as he said Léon, they were right there outside the castle of the king who wanted to marry that princess. But that princess, when she found out that she had been tricked, made such a scene. Yet, when the king appeared, she pretended all was well. Nondore looked at that king. "I have brought you the princess of the golden ram, and you shall be married." Now when the princess heard that, she looked at the king and said, "Ah, yes, of course, we shall be married, but I left something. I left something in this small little treasure box. It is a ring. I can only be married with that ring. It's been in my family for generations. It would be taboo for me to be married without that ring, but alas, I do not know where the key is." Well, Nondore, you must get that ring for me, or you will die, or I'll send my armies and they will find you. You must do this right now." So Nondore did not know what he was going to do. He rode off a little ways, but then his horse said, "Remember, there is the king of the birds. Call for the king of the birds." And so he did. And that kestrel came. And the kestrel said, "What can I do for you?" And Nondore said that he needed that ring, but the key was not found. But that king of the birds called all of the birds of all shapes and sizes, and they scoured about looking for the key, but when they could not find the key, they found where the ring was hidden. And a wren, the smallest of them all, squeezed through, even that little lock squeezed through, lost most of its feathers, got the ring, squeezed back out, flew, and gave the ring to Nondore, and Nondore gave it to the princess. But then the princess says, "Ah, yes, thank you, I have this ring, so now I can get married, but I need my castle. My castle needs to be brought here tomorrow. It needs to be brought by tomorrow." "Nondore, then you must take care of this. Go get our castle." And Nondore didn't know how he was going to bring a whole castle. But his horse said, "But remember, the king of the demons. The king of the demons could help you with this." And so Nondore called out for the king of the demons, and the king of the demons called forth all of his demons, and hundreds upon hundreds of them lifted up with all of their strength and brought that castle. And the princess saw that. Ha! Yes, you brought my castle. But my castle is locked. When I rode that horse, I have to say, we rode so fast that I think my key for that castle fell into the sea. So, without me going into that castle, I cannot marry the king. But Nondore didn't need the reminder from the horse this time. He knew that there was the king of the fish, and he called forth to that king of the fish, and that fish called forth all the other fishes, and they swam all over, and they scoured about looking for that key, until finally there was a dolphin that found it and brought it. And Nondore had that key and gave it to that princess. Well, now there would have to be a marriage. But Nondore was curious about inside that castle. He had been in it for just a moment, but then he was out of it. And he turned and said, But princess, before the marriage, since there's been so much trouble that I have gone through and others to bring you what you needed to have this castle here, please invite us all in. And the princess just harumphed a little bit. But then the king said, Yes, that makes sense. Invite us all in. So the princess, knowing that she could not get out of this, said, Yes, you shall all be invited in. She turned the key, opened it wide. You may all come in. And all did go into that castle. But it wasn't like the first time when Nondore had gone in. Everyone could feel and sense that there was a decay. There was death in the air. And in the middle of it was a couple stacks of golden oats. And who also went into that castle was the horse. The horse galloped as fast as it could and ate those oats. The princess yelled, No, you're not to eat the oats. And when the horse ate the oats, the horse was not a horse. And the princess had changed. Her whole personality had changed. But there was also another young woman. And she had red copper hair. And she was lovely. And she looked at Nondore and said, Look, you have done it. You have made that curse go away. There was someone who wanted to marry my sister and changed her personality and forced her to gather beasts and trap people in her castle if they were not invited in. But when she invited me in, everyone in, and I was able to eat those oats, I have returned. But there's something else that I know, Nondore. I know who you are. Your memories are not all there. Would you like me to tell you everything? And Nondore stepped back. And he remembered his father, that noble chieftain Bros. He remembered his mother. That was his family. He did not need to know more. I said, No. I know who I am. I don't need to know the past. I will move forward. And so is the story of Nondore. So thank you, everybody, for that listening of that story. Thank you for joining in with this stream. And every week we will have a behind the scenes, and we'll always end with a story. So thank you so much, and until we tell again.